Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is January the 8th of 2020. I am Nick here with Chris. We got manga to talk about today, man.
Yeah, new year, new you, Nick.
Yeah, except it's mostly the old me, you know. I got a haircut, I guess.
That's pretty cool. That's the first step on it. What's
same haircut I always get, but
well, I think this year it's all about new things because we only have a finite time in this world, Nick. So
I guess that's true.
Once it's gone, you never got to experience things you didn't. So I think giant red mohawk is the way you need to go.
You want me to become the murder hawk monster or whatever Lance Archer calls himself now?
Exactly. Giant red mohawk.
Props to that guy, by the way. He turned 40 and suddenly decided to become way better.
You know? Sometimes you end up being the boogeyman. Sometimes you be Lance Archer. I think that's the only two career trajectories when you turn 40. It's a dividing path that goes one of two ways.
No one else ever reinvented themselves after they turned 40 in wrestling. Matt who?
Chris what now?
Oh gosh. I do have a bunch of things I want to do this year, though.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll get a new job, which would allow me to have a different schedule and stuff. And there's a couple of other things I want to do, but won't jinx myself on any of them just yet. So, because you know how it is. Once you say it's like, I'm going to do this for the New Year's, like, you forget about it after 2 weeks.
You get burned on it, and then, it hits you pretty hard. I will say I would like robot legs. Because we're into that.
Do you just want them in addition to your current ones, or do you want to replace your current
like if
ones?
they can make it like a centaur, that'd be even cooler. Like I was gonna be like, I'll take the replacements if I need to, but I'm just like, we're in 2020, goddammit. If we're not gonna have flying cards, then I want like cyber enhancements that make me into like a machine monster.
You want to, like Cyborg in DC. He's all about how he's like, oh, being a robot's awesome. Doesn't make me miss my humanity or anything like that. I love
Cyborg. Cyborg was my favorite character in that show. I never paid attention during any of his solo episodes. I never paid attention during the episode notes about his character.
Cyborg episode, cool. And then you just like tune after all of it. Oh, he said booyah.
I was like, man, Cyborg's awesome. Like it's like that weird end of season 3 where like he's like, I may not have my robot parts can be controlled, but my heart's still mine, or something like that.
That was such a weird thing.
And then
afterwards, he's just like, that was a one-time thing. And then when they specifically asked him, "Are you magic now?" He's just like, no, that was a Deus Ex Machina. I'm not going to do that again.
That was just a thing. Look, people forget that there was a Cyborg season for good reason. It wasn't as good as the other ones.
Hey, look, guys, he's leading a different Titans team. None of them are anywhere near as good as the original team.
Hey, you shut your mouth about Masi Menos.
Fuck those two. They're so stupid with their buck teeth.
Yeah, but I watched the end of that episode, and my takeaway was like, man, robots are cool.
Brother Blood's right. I want to be a robot too.
Man, his Brother Blood's got everything in order. I like this guy.
Teen Titans, amazing show. All right. Speaking of superheroes, young superheroes even.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about One Piece. Oh.
Yeah.
Damn. I really thought I had that one.
With those teenage superheroes. Robin, Frankie. Brooke.
Jimbei.
Anyhow. My Hero Academia. Number 256, The High, Deep Blue Sky. So we suddenly cut from where Eraserhead and Present Mike were going to see someone who turned out to be an old friend of theirs, to training that All Might is conducting among Class 1A. And we continue the weird running gag of the robot servants of UA being very previously they were just kind of dismissive of the weak flesh bots and stuff. This time they're like, we will kill the humans as they're being used as training dummies. The first half of this chapter is just a quick little, hey, everyone's getting stronger. It's a lot like the whole interclass thing that happened last year, except this one is in one half chapter as opposed to over the course of about a dozen. So there you go. Aoyama can now summon a lightsaber from his belly. Hayakure can bend lasers through her body. Ashido just turns into a slime monster. All sorts of cool little things. And there's like just a montage of people doing stuff, and there's like they're like all reciting stuff that they learned from different people, including Ida being like, "I'm taking a looser approach by being more physically flexible." Okay. And then there's a little bit where Deku uses his black tendrils, of course. The last ones we see, demonstrating what they've learned are him and Bakugo and Todoroki. They're all doing very well. Deku seemingly has mastered the black tendril thing, and All Might's super proud of his boy. There's a little bit of conversation between people, including one between Deku and Uraraka, because Deku's like, hey, that power that I unleashed when we did that training together, yeah, I've got a lot better control of it now. So thanks for helping me back then to get a hold of myself. And they have a cute little moment because Uraraka's like, oh yeah, and when you did that, now I've got grappling hooks on my gauntlets. So see, Chris, there's a reason why she's got the gauntlets now.
Yeah,
they contain tools that she makes light.
It's a very different suit of armor now that I'm sure anyone would notice upon an immediate first investigation.
Her helmet is completely different, Chris.
Oh, okay.
It's got the same design on the body, but like if her head is in view, you can tell she looks different. Like, come on. Anyway, both of them are just like, hey, because of you, I've improved myself because I got inspiration from you. So they share a cute little moment and they do a little fist bump. Meanwhile, everyone around them is like, are they fucking? Like, are they fucking now? That's basically the reaction everyone has because everyone's like, can sense it between them, except the two of them because, they're stupid teenagers. All Might speaks to the rest of the class saying, you guys all learned a lot. I've recorded all this so that Aizawa can watch it later because I don't know, whatever. I'm sure you got better. Anyway. We cut over to a little conversation between Aizawa and President Mike, who are seemingly very drained from the experience of seeing their friend that they thought was fucking dead. President Mike especially seems really put out. It's like, Aizawa was the one who was using his ability continuously. It's not like you were shouting or anything. Why are you, whatever. I guess he's depressed. He says something very strange. I have to draw attention to this line because it's such an odd line, but it's very President Mike, which is, hey, what would you do if we learned where they're making those Nomu? And President Mike's like, I'd run out of here and have a karaoke contest. Then I'd take my boiling blood and make a stew out of it. I'm not sure how helpful that would be.
Is he going to eat the stew afterwards? Because I can't imagine it's filling or nutritious. But, like, if you're going to make a stew out of it, I mean, this is a real conundrum when you think about it. You can't serve it to anyone. It's very dangerous. It's very unhealthy. But you can't just throw food away. So, I mean, that's on him. Are you typing up blood stew? You're like, is blood stew real?
Well, there's something, what is it, like, blood pudding. That was what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, is
completely different.
I'm sure there's something you could do with it. Before anyone starts saying, like, hey, this is how you use blood and all that, I'm sure there is some cooking application.
Not human blood, please.
Well, I mean, 2020, new year, new you.
Might as well make it someone else's.
Why not start out? Why not give cannibalism a little bit of a try?
New year, new me, Chris. I'm giving vampirism a try.
That's what I like to hear. These are big goals. You know, I like it.
The conversation gets interrupted when Mirio and Amajiki arrive. They have something important to share about Eri, who Nejire has been left to look after. They rush over to see her, and her horn, which of course had been getting a bit bigger before, is now kind of glowing. So Aizawa squats down next to her. I believe he's using his ability to negate this, but I'm not 100% sure. But he comforts her and says, don't worry, this is UA high after all. So presumably they're going to do something about this soon. And then to end the chapter off, we get a little conversation between All Might and Deku and Bakugo, the only people who know about One for All. And All Might congratulates Deku on improving the Black Tendril thing. And then he also says, hey, Bakugo, also you're doing well. And Bakugo's like, shut up. That is essentially what they say. Because Bakugo is very bad at accepting positive reinforcement.
Well, to be fair, he also gives a very concrete level of congratulations to Deku. Like, congratulations on your progress with Black Whip. And then Deku, he's like, and with you, it's like, wow. I mean, what can he do? Which feels exactly like the level of praise someone gives you when they have no idea what to specifically praise you for.
Oh, man, Bakugo, you were just wow.
I watched
Whoa.
it. I was like, this is incredible. He's popping off the screen and just really just raw. Really. And Deku's like, fuck you. Give me a goddamn concrete compliment, you asshole.
Oh, my, it's like a judge on The Voice or something like that. He's like, you were,
you hit.
I was feeling it, dog.
He takes on the Randy Jackson role where it's like, dog, pretty good.
That's wrong.
Really
good.
Oh,
man.
he's combining them all. He hits a button, turns around, says, that was pretty good, dog. Then he takes off a mask and then hits a button to boo the contestant off stage. And he runs over and hits a gong so they have to leave. Someone's like, I think he just heard of the concept of a
I'm sorry, you've been chopped.
And then they drop a bunch of bugs on him. He's like, fear factor.
I'm sorry, you've been voted off the island. There are judges on Survivor.
Is the island itself not a judge of a moral character?
No, they're all contestants against each other.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, All Might watches a lot of reality shows.
He has a lot of time now.
This chapter of My Hero Academia. He has a notebook for Deku about past successors' quirks. That's what happened. There are a lot of minutiae in this chapter that are interesting to me. I really like seeing the little tidbits of, this is, the new little power that this hero has and stuff like that. There's stuff going on with Eri again. And it really does feel like there's a lot of little pieces that are moving, which is something that I really do like to see from My Hero Academia. A lot of my favorite chapters from the series, especially lately, have just been like, here's everyone doing a little something, as opposed to here's someone doing one really big something. Mm-hmm. And honestly, this chapter feels sort of like the most that the heroes have done in a while, because we were going over how, last year it was primarily the villains arc. There was, the interclass competition that was kind of ending at the start of last year. And beyond that, there was the Christmas stuff. And then there was the training with Endeavor, which was not the kids were not really the focus of that. It was more the Todoroki family drama. So seeing this was it's kind of like everything's kind of getting back on the road again. And so it's not an incredible chapter in and of itself, but it does get me excited to see where things are going again.
So one thing I want to note that we didn't really touch on is I really do like that there's a moment when All Might's watching Deku go where he thinks, wow, you don't even look behind you anymore at me. And he has this moment of kind of like as a teacher and kind of almost like a little bit like a father figure saying like,
Yeah.
oh, my kid's kind of grown past me. But he,
Yeah, you've not only, gotten better at your powers, but you're mature now,
yeah.
or at least more mature.
And he also follows it up by saying like, and you don't need to. So it's not supposed to be like some like big dramatic story arc or anything like that. But it's a nice little sweet moment for him. But in the moment you're referring to with all the different characters, I'm also not as big of a My Hero fan as you are. I think that's pretty clear.
I know. Yeah.
So for me, when I look at this, I'm like, it's okay. But there's about half of Class 1A that I feel like you could cut out from the story and I wouldn't notice or really care. And there's moments
When there's a full 20 characters there, eventually you're like, maybe we should just focus on like 12 of them.
yeah, like, well, in particular when it's like when it gets to Ida's and it's like a looser approach, you're like, I could actually see how you would like visualize that and show how being looser helps Ida to be a better person in combat, and like you could actually visibly show that to us as opposed to a panel where something's happening in the background. I can't tell what. It's a bunch of speed lines and I assume a robot's getting kicked, but I mean, you can't really tell. And part of me is like, I feel like we're never going to get a real like follow up from there. It was just like, here's what Ida did. And that's fine. It's just one of those things where I'm like, Ida's one of the characters I actually kind of really like and I think has like more of a developed personality and like flavor than most of the cast. So it'd be nice to see him get more than to be like, fucking belly button dude's got a laser sword now. And it's like, okay.
I think we're at a point where we're far enough into the series where I feel as though when we reach the end, in retrospect, it'll be like, if you had taken out like Sato, Ojiro, Koda, Hagakure, Sero, then you wouldn't really be missing a whole lot from the series. And that's a full quarter of this class. I will say that there is one moment in this that I do really like, which is it's a very small moment, but after Ashido demonstrates her power, she goes over to Kirishima and she's like, I got inspired to do this because of your unbreakable ability. And they're just like, yeah, they've got that shared history. It's nice to be reminded of. So.
Oh yeah. And it's a ship tease for all the people out there who are.
It is, but it's much less blatant than the Deku Uraraka one. Because this one is just like, hey, good job, yeah. And the other one, they're like, smiling, and everyone's like, are they fucking? Anyhow,
yeah,
that's My Hero Academia this week.
Yes, it is.
So we are short 3 series. We've got World Trigger, but we're still short the Crunchyroll series and Eden and the fucking Dr. Stone.
Now, Dr. Stone we knew was going to be out.
Because Boichi was sick.
Yes.
This week.
The very real likelihood is that Crunchyroll will probably just release next week to like give it advance notice. So there's no manga next week. But what we'll do is a regular episode. We're going to catch up on Act Age, talk about in the show. And then in all likelihood, the Crunchyroll series will probably be there. So we might just do those ones as well.
This site also says that there will be a Spy Family chapter, so that'll give us a handful of things to talk about. So there'll
be something there. But
we'll do a good long conversation about Actage and maybe have a few more things thrown in there.
But there's no Eden Zero or Seven Deadly Sins today, in case anyone's wondering where those are at.
So I just got to power through until we never learn. So we're going to do our newer series now. Start off with Mission Yozakura Family. Chris, we got a Naoto chapter, mostly.
Sort of.
I'm not going to say kind of. Like, I was worried that it's like, oh, Chris is going to be so pissed off about this when it seemingly like teased it and then started to go away from that. He comes back in a very important role at the end. But still.
Yeah, when I'm like, he's, I guess, the third most significant character in this chapter. But hey, you know what? It's still very good. He got his moment. It's interesting because it feels like, so I mentioned last week where like the end happened and they were like, it's a new direction for the Yozakura family, and you were like, maybe this is where we're gonna make that jump over or something like that. Like maybe this is the literal change. And this is definitely a chapter that's suggesting a change. This is a very different tone for it. But there was a moment where like I was like, did they plan for this to be a now chapter beforehand? And then they had to just crowbar this dude, the cool new like fucking fanboy characters in for everybody to like. And they were like, well, there's no room for now to do anything cool, so I guess he'll be asleep most of the chapter. And I'm like, well, damn it.
So it's Mission 19, Government Spies. Said government spies are introduced on page 1 of the chapter. One of them is reading a little magazine that's about Tayo and
Mutsumi.
Is it Mutsumi? It is Mutsumi. About their wedding ceremony. And they talk a little bit about this while they're heading out of the, I don't know. They beat up like one guy and wrecked about 3 trucks. It looks like in this building. Whatever.
They've done a very big mission. Everybody's defeated.
Tayo gets a video call from Nanao while he's got a 500-kilogram weight on him while he's doing push-ups because he's got to get swole and also be a super spy. And so he's like, hey, I'm on a mission.
And it's got a face on it, Nick. It's only the second most distracting, weirdly placed giant face in Shonen Jump this week.
So Tayo is like, okay, yeah, I can pick you up where you need me to. And I love the way that Nanao puts this, which is the evil science laboratory. Like, he's not even sure where he is. But he basically says like, yeah, so these guys created this new biological weapon, which if it explodes will kill everything in a 10-kilometer radius. So I'm going to take this with me, but it'll be too dangerous to just leave it here for now. So I've got to eat it. And he explains like, yeah, I've got the ability to detoxify stuff in my body. So I'm just going to do that now to make sure this thing doesn't explode. But it'll take me a few hours to do it properly. And I get really sleepy when I do that. So come pick me up. Bye. So Tayo heads there. He does have to take out a few guards that I guess Nanao had just not taken out previously. It's weird because we see that Nanao has like gotten into this laboratory and tied up all of the scientists and stuff. So I guess this large hulking man with a bucket on his head is very stealthy. He's stealthier than Tayo is.
He's very sneaky.
And, Tayo's using his electric gun to stun people and stuff. But all of a sudden, a weight on a chain comes flying towards him. It takes out a guard that was trying to sneak attack him around a corner. And there's these 2 guys there. Oh, the spies that were at the start of the chapter, and they're in these black trench coats. And they recognize him, of course, but from the magazine. One of them is very serious. One of them is very wacky. So there you go. Typical, hot-blooded, cold-blooded pairing. The loud guy is named Inugami, and the cool guy is named Aoi, which is like, yeah, that sounds about right. You name the cool guy Aoi, you name the other guy Dog. So. Yeah. So they demonstrate their abilities a little bit. Inugami's got really strong senses, and he's got his chain thing. Aoi's not really doing a whole lot as they make their way through the facility. He's just, kind of like waiting for his moment. They come across the Nanao, who is of course still unconscious, but then Tayo gets attacked by Inugami, and he's like, it's our mission to kill that guy. And Aoi explains that, yeah, this guy became a threat when he swallowed the weapon. So for the country's safety, we have to take him out. Yeah, we intercepted your conversation that you had while we were monitoring the laboratory. So we know what's going on here between you guys. So we're going to kill him. So get out of the way. And of course, Tayo refuses. He says, if you want to kill my younger brother, you have to kill me first. And he points his electric gun. And Aoi Byakuyas Tayo. He moves so quickly that we just see the after effects of his attack and blood spurting out of Tayo's limbs and torso, and his gun chopped into pieces. And now he says a spy has no need to become emotional as Tayo collapses. He talks down to Tayo, which Inugami is a bit upset with. But before they can finish off either Tayo or complete their mission, and now gets up and he's like, "Hang on a second. I've actually just finished detoxifying the weapon. And look, this patch test is evidence that my sweat does not contain any bacterial poison. So, you can still kill me if you want to, but let me give him first aid before you do." But now he's like, "Well, if you detoxified it, then that's fine. Our mission's complete. There's no more danger. So sure, I'll take that test of yours, and that'll be proof for it. And here," and he gives him some ikaku ointment to cover up his wounds. If you can't tell, I think of a lot of things in terms of Bleach. By the way, Chainsaw Man's just like. So.
What do you mean, Nick? Just because there's a dude with black hair who's very stoic who uses a sword, and a guy with much more wild hair who uses a weapon which has a giant chain attached, like as a part, like a base part of it, who has a much more like violent personality.
And just because they are the first guys to give the protagonist his first major defeat, leaving him in a crumpled heap, bleeding everywhere.
I don't know where the similarities are.
It's not like they're non-standard shonen tropes,
no.
but...
No, Bleach was not the first to do it either. It's just... You kind of said it when you were like, yeah, of course this dude's name's fucking Aoi. Why wouldn't it be?
Aoi says to Tayo, "If your skills are this weak, perhaps it'd be better for the Yozakura family if you died." And then they leave. And Nanao goes to tend Tayo's wounds while he contemplates the fact that he was defeated so easily. So, much more serious chapter of Yozakura Family than usual. You were talking about earlier about the new change in direction. How did you like the chapter, though?
So, I when I saw this happen, I was like, okay, this makes sense. I know Yozakura Family has not been doing crazy well in the rankings, so the idea turned into a much more of like a standard battle shonen is the thing. When you do it, these are exactly the kinds of characters you introduce, the characters who are immediately cool that'll get people saying, "Oh, I like this, I want to see more of these guys." Like, usually it's like the cold, stoic kind of character that really kind of resonates with 14-year-olds, like, to be completely frank. So when you see these characters show up, I'm like, okay, so what's the unique things about them, and how does this kind of make the story going forward? And honestly,
one of them has glasses and swings a chain.
Well, the thing that's most interesting to me is that they're government agents. They work for the government. So when you look at that, you have to say, all right, well, they seem to have, relatively speaking, they don't kill Tayo on sight because they're like, hey, you're useful to this mission. But it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, you could do interesting things by even necessarily saying maybe the government's doing something evil that the Yozakura family is trying to stop, or maybe the Yozakura family is suddenly made enemies of the government, so these guys have to go after them. Something along those lines. I'm just trying to see how these pieces add up, because unlike with Hitman Reborn, where it was also kind of like a young, goofy character suddenly became the head of a mafia family, like, the actual kid in Reborn was like the full-on leader of the family, and everyone else were kind of just his friends. Whereas this one, you're like, I mean, Tayo's there, but everyone else in the family is way stronger than he is. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm trying to like piece together how these two meet without having to deal with the fact that there's like 7 stronger members of the actual Yozakura family to deal with as well. So
you mean it like kind of removes the tension of, can Tayo beat these guys? Of like, well, if he can't, then his family will anyway. So,
or something along, like, I'm just trying to see how these meet. So I think this is actually a decent chapter to kind of introduce everything. In my mind, I'm always trying to like think like, all right, how does this meld together? Like, what does this get me excited for? And I'm like, I guess Ao and Tayo having another fight, but in my mind, I'm like, well, one's a government agent, one's a spy. I'm trying to think like where they meet that it feels natural with like a big build up to it, and I can't quite see that yet. So I guess I need to see a little bit more to see if they're actually trying to build up this guy as like a real first antagonist, or if they're going to be like, this is like the anti-hero on the side, and we're gonna get like a different villain or something like that later on. Like, this is
Just
rival or
follow,
something.
it just follows him instead as he goes and
He
kills all the members of Akatsuki.
I'm very cool. Shink! And then we just see like Akatsuki explode. Ah! What did you think, Nick?
I'm in two minds about it. For a while now, I've kind of been like, okay, you know, this series needs to do something different in order to actually like have legs. I thought that it was at its best when it was kind of like it was serious, but the things that were happening were goofy, like in the first chapter. And the big issue that I have with this is that the stuff that happens within this chapter is very standard once it gets to the more serious stuff.
Yeah.
So nothing really about these two government agents has really stood out to me yet. I'm interested to see what will happen with them and how this new direction is going to affect the series. But I don't know. I'm not incredibly optimistic about it right now.
No,
so
you have a good point. It's a good way of putting it too, where there's not actually anything that feels super unique about them. I do want to note, though, I do appreciate that they gave Nanao a cool ability, and he's like, I can detoxify things, but it makes me really sleepy. It's like a food coma, and it just goes to sleep. You're like, all right, cool. Let's see how we use this later on.
All right, Samurai 8, Chapter 33, Partner. Okay, so
Samurai 8 is getting progressively better at doing half of a chapter well. It's reaching a point where like it could do half the chapter. I'm like, I'm into this. And then the other half falls apart. But we're getting closer. Like, I feel like maybe like one more page every week is good before it just becomes nonsense.
So last time they got past Benkei through everyone's combined efforts, and Sen the Silent launched his rocket hand to try and pull the key out before it launched the planet-destroying laser thing. And it starts to do that at the count of one, but we like hit one while cutting outside of the Starkiller base. And then when we cut back inside, Hayataro is there too, helping pull the key out. And it's like, so Hachimaru's like, the original Hayataro, way to go, little guy. And it's like, did he actually help at all, though? Because the hand was already on the key pulling it out.
It looks like he jumped up to help give it like some momentum from below.
Yeah, but that's not clear from the single image, though.
Not really.
That's what happens when you don't do establishing shots. Starkiller base stops and shuts down. And so they're like, we did it. The launch stopped. Yay. Hurrah.
My favorite is the torso dudes who are like, yeah! It's
weird. What?
Fucking silly way this series works that these torso, like these legless guys, like, we did it, everybody!
Have you ever seen the GIF? It's like, it's from one of the WWE games, 2K13 or 14 or something like that. So there's a shot of like, I think you're supposed to like beat NWO Hogan or something like that. So if you fail to do so,
he's really tough.
So if you failed the story
he beat
mission,
Kevin Nash with just a finger poke.
Yeah, exactly. He beat Sting. So if you fail to do it, though, like there's this shot of NWO Hogan just grinning and like thumbs up, and then it fades to a shot that goes, "You lose." So people have gifted that and see Hogan like, "You lose." So it's the inverse of this. These guys be like, "Yeah,
we did it, everybody."
Where are my intestines? Sen radios down to the planet. It's like, we captured Benkei and seized his ship. Uh, Everyone who's down the planet is a criminal. Surrender. And they're like, so the criminals were like, we're saved. And then they're like, oh no, we're under arrest. We're not saved. Thank God Sen the Silent was here.
This dude does not do a chapter without a monologue in it. I hope every member of the Federation has ironic nicknames. Like, they're like, that's Sen, the hilarious, and he just walks up and he's just like, penis, and it like walks across. They're like, he's very funny. I swear.
He chooses his words very wisely.
From down the hall, you just hear penis. Like, all right, he goes to the penis well a lot.
Look, whenever he plays the penis game, he becomes Sen the not silent at all.
But ironically,
he refuses to lose that game.
But ironically, he's never a better samurai than when he's playing the penis game. Like, his soul becomes white. He's faster than everybody else. You just gotta let him play it.
His maiden prays really hard for him to scream that word.
It's strange because he's basically the police chief. So there's really no reason he couldn't just shout penis as loud as he wants. There's no social taboo that he's breaking, which is the entire crux of the game. But to him, this is the World Series, and it happens 3 times a day.
So they're like, it's going to be difficult to take Benkei as is. He's too big for us to like transport him. So the former Kotsuga, whose name I keep forgetting because I don't fucking care.
Sanda.
Thank you. Is like, allow me. And he steps up to Benkei and like climbs up onto his weird monster body. And is like, you lied to me the entire time and I trusted you. And Benkei's like, yeah, you're kind of a gullible idiot. That's basically what he says.
And you know what? This could have been a brilliant moment where after Benkei loses, he's just a really shitty, smarmy heel about it. He's just like, yep, you're a big fucking goober, and you do all these stupid things because you were easy to manipulate and trick. But then he's like, hey, turns out your dad was kind of a shithead too. And you're like, all right, let's kind of end it there. And you're like, no, let's go a little bit further.
Your mom. I tricked your mom too. Fuck you.
They're like, all right, well, let's go a little bit further. Why don't we try to see if one more time we could do the old whose side is Sanda really on trick?
Can you imagine if, like, every time that Randy Orton came out, it's like, and I am the greatest, and you were all bought it, and I'm better. If someone were like, but what does he really want to do? You can't insert intrigue into every angle, is what I mean. Sometimes the story is super obvious, and you just gotta go accept that and roll with it. Oh, man.
But hey, can we appreciate it that we got Big Show to come back and he didn't turn heel on the same night?
So, man. I was thinking people because they were like, oh, so they've got to have a mystery tag team partner. Who could it be? Maybe it'll be Jeff Hardy returning. Maybe it'll be, some other member who could, benefit from being in a main event angle. Some face who's kind of lost.
Well!
Maybe it'll be Big Show.
Yeah, I guess he was really annoyed that his 20-year streak of wrestling on Monday Night Raw was finally broken. He was like, fine, I'll do it this year then.
Anyhow, Benkei goes into a speech. He's got so many speeches prepared. He goes into his archive of in case I'm defeated, I better have a speech ready. And he's like, because Yoshitsune had everything that I did not, and I wanted it all. Whatever.
I mean,
people seek perfection and completion in themselves and in others. Everyone keeps their flaws a secret and feigns perfection. And Hachimaru once more feels shame because he lied about himself to make himself look better. And so Benkei is like, I'm going to talk for several more pages.
I was like, look, that's good justification right there. Why did Benkei do all this? He's kind of just a greedy asshole. We know that he doesn't have anything special about him. He was a low, significant samurai. He was an attendant to somebody else. Why did he do everything he did? It's because he's just been kind of greedy and he wants everything. And you can even...
He wanted to be the emperor of Odin, you know?
And you can even have that moment, too, where Hachimaru thinks, like, wow, I kind of was just like that. It might have been more effective if we'd had him looking towards An instead of, like, a flashback. Yeah. But, hey, we can't always, like, this is also meant for children, so, you know, sometimes you have to be direct with these things.
Oh, outright.
But it's it's like the next page happens, and you're like, all right, fine, just fuck it, I guess.
So, Sanda's like, if you transfer 1 billion yen to me right now, I will spare you. And Benkei's like, I immediately trust you.
He's like, this hasn't done me poorly in the past 5 minutes or so. Like, it was like 2 chapters ago he betrayed you. I think it was the last chapter he betrayed you.
I was comparing him to Randy Orton earlier. So clearly, I should have been comparing him to Sting. So, all right, but don't you betray me.
Like, the moment you see him be like, hey, why don't you just transfer me $1 billion and I'll get you out of this? And it's him like, you're like, what in your mind thinks this plan's going to work? Let's say he is working for you. You're surrounded by people much stronger than you. And this dude has proven himself to suck. How are you getting out of this?
Also, you were just like, you're a fucking easily manipulated idiot. And your dad's an easily manipulated idiot. And your mom was an easily manipulated idiot. And that was why I killed them and took everything that they had and made you my manservant. If you give me $1 billion, then I will let you go. You got it, bro.
He's like, ha ha ha, what a deal.
So Sanda turns on everyone holding a sword out. They're like, no, how could you? And then he just immediately turns back around and cuts Benkei's head off.
I don't even...
Have to turn his back on the person he's swinging his sword at in order to draw the sword or something?
What is the point of the, ha-ha, I'm actually not with you. No, I am. Like, what's that for?
Benkei's like, oh, you bastard, you tricked me.
And I also like, so there's a moment where Sen's like, hey, he's too big. We're going to have to transport him in this. And Sanda grabs it and says, allow me. And Sen looks at him and then quietly closes his eyes and nods. And this could be a moment where you could say Sen the Silent is a great, wise character. You realize this kind of what this is.
Good judge of character.
This is his catharsis. The moment Sanda does his thing, his first thing's like, huh?
Well, he's like, what are they whispering about? What are they doing?
I have no control over this situation anymore.
Penis!
Not now! I need all my thoughts!
I've got to control myself. Stop praying for me to shout penis really loudly.
Alright, fine, penis! Now with my endorphins released, I'll be able to clearly think my way through this situation.
All right, so Sanda has a speech prepared for this because he's like, I'm just not that good of a guy. I'm not perfect either. Also, you might have many secrets, but there's one thing I can tell, and that is you have no real partner. You are alone. And he's like standing next to Ryu, like we're buddies. And Benkei's got nothing to say to this. He just goes when he's put in the head prison.
Drat.
I hope that is as large as the transportation thing actually gets. Like you have to just chop somebody down until they're ahead in order to transport them. You can't even do like their torso or anything like that.
That's what it seems to indicate. Yeah.
We do get the explanation of like this thing actually shuts down the regenerative powers of whoever's inside it. So it's like, oh, it makes perfect sense actually for them to have this thing. So yeah, they got the 1 billion yen, and Sanda immediately hands it over to Hachimaru, and he's like, yeah, it's what you're owed. You won the tournament, so you take it. And he bows his head to Hachimaru and says, hey, you helped me avenge my parents, so thank you. But then he says, You're like me, aren't you? I'll risk my life to save you if you need to avenge someone. So keep that in mind and someday tell me more about yourself. And Hachimaru thinks.
And Hachimaru's like, I'm not that deep.
So Sanda actually does something really cool where he's like, hey, I was helping Benkei, but Ryu had nothing to do with this. He's perfectly innocent here. Just let him go. And Sen's like, well, I've already basically made my report about what's going on, and the judge from Zoids is going to come here to pass judgment. And he's like, the court case will be settled by AI jurors within 30 minutes. I'm like, this seems like a flawed system immediately.
Guilty. Like, really, that's the 90,000 guilty verdicts it's enacted in a row. I guess the machine's flawless. They're like, hey, there's a big switch in the back that seems to be blinking. Do you think we should take a look at that? Like, nah.
I love also that sense, like, you have the right to speak in court, but it will not be taken very heavily into account. Again, flawed system.
They're like, on the account of the robots.
Right.
They're like, aren't we robots?
One of the robot judges is just, if it pleases the court, I understand that things are very seriously taken into account, and I need you to understand that. Boring!
Not interested.
Do the pain bit.
We have no emotions. Strip him of his testicles.
And make him dance. Ha ha ha, look at you dancing, you dickless asshole.
They're like, it's weird. You say you don't have emotions, but you really seem to take enjoyment out of seeing humans be hurt. Yes! Asimov's fourth law! Forget all the rules, the points don't matter. The Drew Carey rule.
All right. So, the judges show up and they're like, this place has served as a hideout for all kinds of illicit activity, it seems. But all wicked plans come to light sooner or later. And now this case will go into the books. These last 3 pages were like entirely pointless. I don't really get it. I mean, the planet looks different. Okay, it's got a face.
Well,
all right.
This is like, so there was that moment in Skypiea where they show early on that sometimes when lightning strikes, you can see silhouettes from above on the ground, and it looks like giants, and you saw giants fight. And the end of one of Skypiea has Luffy striking an arrow and ringing the bell, and everybody down below has seen it. This is supposed to be that big moment where we've seen this planet get scarred several times. So we've seen this giant space station move closer and closer, and then this hidden bubble disappears, and what's behind is a winking face, because winking was very, very significant towards this fight. Now, I'm not sure who this context is for, because no one seems to be looking at this being like, winking face. Like, it's not like Sanda and Ryu are like, oh, like what we do or anything like that. It's nothing. This is for the audience. And the first thing I see is I'm like, why is there a giant emoji in space? Like, I was like, maybe you should have thought this through a little bit more. Because I understand after looking at it for a while, I was like, oh, it's supposed to be like the wink that they do. But the first time you see it, I was like, is this like a giant villain insignia that just got revealed? Or like, what is this?
So first chapter of the new year, and we got a whole bunch of potential what the fuck moments of the year all in one chapter, Chris.
You really? Like when I got to the end of the chapter, I had to like look at it a couple times. It's like, who's this for? It wasn't like the winking thing was so cool. It had to be done on like an environmental level for me to appreciate.
It's executed so in such a boring way. To your point about Ryu and Sanda, like if we'd had a shot of, because we just see the cloak disappearing as these featureless bricks float through space towards it. Completely unnecessary to have this wide shot happening across 2.5 pages. You could have easily just had a little moment of like 2 two panels of Ryu and Sanda look out the window. They see this. We don't see it yet, what's being revealed. So the first one is them reacting in shock. The second one is them kind of smiling or sharing a little look or something like that. And then you reveal what's been revealed to their eyes.
But like,
even with just what has happened in the series, because the winky face thing, not a huge thing. It's a symbol of, it's them holding their arms up, but way less effective, you know? But it was something that was private to them as opposed to, a huge lore thing or something like what you're talking about. But it would have still been much more effective than just like, here's what the planet looks like. Out in space.
It means something to them. And the thing you can't forget is they can't see it. They're in the spaceship that makes up the eye. The only people who are seeing the winky face in the fiction of the universe are the police. They're like, that fucking winky space like planet. Sweet, I guess.
So no one's in a position to even appreciate this. It's action that we actually care about. Yeah.
You're just like,
it's
I guess, cool. Thanks. It's like, fuck, man, I really did. I feel like there's a piece of jump that's been missing since both Kishimoto and Kubo have been out of the magazine, and I'm glad a little piece of it's sticking around where you're just like, sure.
Give me a new Kubo series, please, so I can so I can just be like, this is stupid. Zipman.
Zip.
Sure. Operation 5, Angel Gorilla. So this was a bit of a different chapter for this series. So Kagami's got to go to school because Koshiro insists that he maintain his cover despite them working together as Zipman. So Kagami had the idea of, I know, I'll pretend that you're a weird backpack and carry you to school. So he's just got this huge lumpy thing with a face that he's carrying around. And Koshiro keeps on thinking, he's like, oh my God, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. Everyone's going to see through this. This is so obvious. And Kagami's trying to do stuff like, oh my gosh, this backpack is so convenient. It can carry so much. And the zipper's so big.
Very subtle about that there.
Well, but people think because he's, super scary because he's like, I can fit anything in you. People are like,
oh my God,
he's going to kill us because stuff is in that bag. So that's pretty cool. China tackle glomp hugs Kagami when she sees him and is like, oh, you're alive after that fight that you had where you ran off and didn't touch base with me afterwards. So she's really happy to see him safe and sound. And she's like, I was really scared, but that big guy rescued me and he was really cool. And I'll have to thank him when I see him. And of course the brothers are like, oh, we can't tell her. And then she's like, what's with this backpack? It's really cute. And for some reason it reminds me of Koshiro. And so they run away. And Koshiro just comments, China always did have good intuition. So that is why she randomly was like, your backpack reminds me of your dead brother. So it's not a stupid comment if it's entirely accurate, Chris. You can't say that.
No.
They overhear someone saying that a girl in class 3 was talking to the Phantom cosplayer. So immediately it's like, oh, a chance to investigate. And the girl in question that apparently was getting to talk to this person is this kind of lonely girl with glasses sitting by herself. And Konami's like, oh, hey, you're eating right. Can I talk to you? She runs away. So the entire chapter is basically about Koshiro trying to teach his brother, this is how you, talk to people in order to get them to tell you stuff. And it keeps on not working. We just get, a sequence of events that happen as Konami tries to approach her in various different ways. He tries to, imitate what she's doing in art class, and he draws a scary-looking version of the portrait that she draws. He tries to observe her interests and use that to get close to her. But eventually, he needs to do something his own way, which is to play a song from a show that he realizes that she likes, stand up in the middle of the school grounds on top of the statue pedestal. I do love that the the statue broke when they ramped off of it a few chapters ago, and so they're just like, we just gotta like keep the statue here where it should be next to... So it's just like a constant thing. Now. We'll fix it eventually. It's a nice little continuity detail. But he's like, from having actually observed her, he's like, oh, there's some otaku show that you really like. So he's taking a direct approach and trying to bond with her over this. Is like, you're a big fan of this idol group, and I'm familiar with them because they did a theme song for the Jackman movie. So I think that we have a lot in common, because I really like that song too. So can we talk? But this actually works because the guy is like, oh, well, you're. Everyone says how scary you are, but you're trying so hard to be nice and friendly that I think that that's actually really funny. So they do bond over that, and he asks about the fandom cosplayer, and she's like, oh, well, when I was heading to school, someone said, you're just as great as her. Why don't you join our club? And gave me this business card. She hands over this card that reads, Club Zip Down Prime Member Brave. So, a bit of a different chapter for this series. Some character development on a few different fronts, potentially introducing a new supporting cast member. I did like it. It was a bit odd to come at this moment. I was definitely expecting much more like, okay, we got to keep on doing the action stuff, but I guess we got to do more to establish, like, okay, here's some more of what's going on as they get closer to this organization, and hopefully we'll find out a little bit more about them soon.
So, this chapter was kind of interesting to me because it was kind of a unique way of showcasing the two of them, where there's this problem. They need to get in touch with this girl, but the issue is Kanade has such a shitty reputation at school, the whole Angel Densetsu situation where everyone thinks he's a super violent person just because of the way he looks. So how do we approach that? And Koshiro's way of doing it is like, all right, analytical. Let's look at her. Let's analyze her her body language. Let's see what she's doing, all these things. And it's like, okay, well, that's not working because it's actually, it's not. Honestly, the way it doesn't work is because Kaname's the fucking idiot who just keeps kind of ruining things. But, like, what does Kanane bring to the table? And it's like, well, the answer to that, and to honestly everything that involves Kaname, is Jackman. Where it's like, he's supposed to kind of be, where Koshiro is this sort of analytical personality. Kaname is supposed to be the one who has more emotional intelligence.
Right.
And he
it's the brain and the heart.
Yeah. So he sees her and he's like, oh, I know that thing she's eating. It's related to this group. And I know the person she's looking at. And she must be a really big fan. So someone like that's, like that's how I connect with them or something like that. And I feel like for this series to be able to run for a really like a good amount of time, we need to establish that Kaname can have a heart to people that doesn't require a fucking Jackman connection to be the number one thing that connects. Like, it really is a moment where I'm just like, they're like, we got to go back in time and stop the Kennedy assassination. Thankfully, the book depository was used in an early promo shot for a Jackman episode. And that's how we managed to, like, that's our in every situation. It's just like, there was some weird Jackman trivia about this that we had to catch in on. So I do like it.
I get the impression you're not going to get that, Chris. The prior chapter to this one, his big speech to the villain after defeating them was, go back and watch it again and think about what you've done.
Well, like, no, well, that kind of worked because it's at least being like, hey, you like this, like in this world where people are becoming super villains based off of characters from TV shows. It's something where you're like, oh, okay, he understands these things. So he watches them and he's like, hey, I'm not trying to explain to you why morality-wise this is wrong, but I'm explaining to you why your hero who you look up to wouldn't approve of this because that's what they would do is wrong. Something like that. That's fine. It's when in here where he has this moment where he connects with her, but it all hinges upon the fact he's like, huh, I understand. I remember that pastry. Oh, it was some kind of combination with Jackman and someone else. What was it? And that's the catalyst for fucking everything. It always has to be some Jackman connection to get in on.
You imagine they're like, all right, the War of 1812 was started over what? It had something to do with Jackman. No, it didn't.
He's like, but I believe a central character from that conflict was then named as a historical reference for a character in Jackman. Like it's like 6 degrees of Jackman for everything he does. Like they're just like the house is on fire. What are we going to do? He's like, house is on fire. Fire. There's a fire-based villain in Jackman.
Word association.
Fire needs to be put out. Fire creates smoke. Smoke sometimes leads. Smoke was one of the ninjas in Mortal Kombat. The other ninja, Sub-Zero, blue, ice, blue, ice. No, sometimes ice melts, becomes water. We can put out that house with water. Like, it burned down 30 minutes ago, Jackman. You ruined everything.
All right. We never learn.
All right, let's talk about We Never Learn. Question 142. Evanescent Mermaid is dampened by the Promised X Part 1.
The Promised what? The Promised what?
Pizza Bet. Sorry. Promised Pizza Bet. It was a very long title, and I got very distracted.
An Evanescent Mermaid is dampened by the Promised Neverland Part 1.
Yeah, sorry. Did I say Neverland?
No. Okay. I used Pizza Bet that time.
Okay.
But this.
All right. So they're on their graduation trip, and it's worth noting that the other two girls who wouldn't necessarily be there are also there.
All the girls are there.
Everyone's there, basically.
They're not coming off of this mountain until the harem situation has been settled.
Yeah. So specifically, they say, like, oh, okay, they invited Asumi. She's like, I'm really thankful for doing that. They're like, no, you should thank Kirisu, because it's actually her family whose lodge we're staying at, and that's kind of what made all this possible. So there's a very big moment on that. There's a joke about how Ogata and Yuiga can't ski at all because they have zero athletic ability, which I was like, bullshit. How is Yuiga that cut and he has zero athletic ability? I don't understand how those two things are possible.
This is the man who nearly missed his exams because he slipped down the stairs. So
well, it was very snowy.
So is it right now?
I guess. You know what? Fair point. I'm going to take back everything. So yeah, Yuiga's like, you know what? It's good. We get to have this nice trip. Everything's really great. We get to really just spread our wings and have some fun. We don't have to worry about finals anymore. Everything's going to be okay. And then Aruka comes by and she's doing like a 780 in the air, and then she lands. She's like, I love how the slopes are so empty. And Yuiga's like, and we cut to a flashback about what happened after the end of last chapter. And I love the way it starts because she's like, I love you. I'm crazy about you. And this isn't a joke. I'm not trying to practice this for anything.
I want to make sure I'm not going back on this.
There's no bullshit here.
Yeah.
I love you, and I've loved you for the past 5 years. The entire time I've been in love with you. And Yuiga is speechless. He's like, what do you mean? No, she said she had a crush. No, wait, no, she didn't. But in the past 5 years. And she's like, hey.
He can't process it, basically.
Yeah. She's like, hey, we're probably not actually going to get to see each other after this very much. So I'm glad I told you, because actually I impressed the coach overseas so much. They want me to come even before school starts. So I'm actually going to be leaving right after graduation. So kind of just in a few days. And, I'll probably just have to train off my butt 24/7 after that. So you don't need to say anything back to me. But before graduation, how about we all go on a trip together? And that's where we are now. We're all on this big trip. And Yuiga's really nervous. He keeps turning away every time he sees Aruka because he's still trying to process all of this. There's a bunch of small jokes. Ogata sets up a little ramen or a little udon fucking restaurant that's shaped like a bunny somewhere. They go sing karaoke, and there's a moment where Kirisu's like, I don't want to sing. And they're like, why? Because you have a bad voice. And they're like, no, she has a fucking wonderful voice, but she only likes singing old Japanese folk songs, and she only does that because she gets drunk. There's a bath scene that I am very thankful to say I can 100% completely cut from this. There's not even a side piece of narrative thrown into it. It's just fan service jokes.
It is just a joke about boobs. Yeah.
It's not even like that scene in Black Clover.
There's no relevance to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's not like Eden Zero where they have a very long conversation about what they're thinking about or anything like that. Well, there's, look, oh no, the camera went behind her butt.
Yeah.
It's literally just we're all naked.
It's not like what was it, Black Clover like a couple months ago, where it was just like we're
Glad
bathing
that you're
each
all-
other, but
and
yeah, you've really improved my morale or anything like that. Nothing. But Aruka gets out of the bath first, and Yuega's working on. He's like kind of just cleaning up, and he's like, I really need to, find a moment to talk to Aruka alone. He says that out loud, and she's like, "Did you call me?" And he's like, hey, uh, and he can't find any words to say, and she's staring at him, and he's like, I need to talk to her. I don't know. She confessed her feelings for me. I guess the next step would be to talk about whether or not we're in a relationship, but I mean, how she's felt for the past 5 years. And he stares at her. He's like, what is Aruka Takamoto to me? And steam shoots out of his ears, and he gets really flushed, and then he crashes. And Aruka says, oh my God, he's buried up with the fever. Help somebody.
I do really like a lot of the stuff that goes on in this chapter, because the stuff, I mean, like, Aruka has an incredibly mature approach to things in terms of, like, I don't think a long-term relationship is going to work out, so I don't need to hear your answer, but this was something I needed to tell you, so now it's out there, and, she can, go on with the rest of her life without regrets, basically. That's where she is right now. But also the stuff that Yuiga's going through, like, these are all very realistic, like, things to have weighing on your mind. And, for a kid who has never had to deal with the situation before, his reaction to it, where he's just like thinking about it, like seemingly constantly, once he goes on that train, and literally it like physically affects him because he's so caught up in his own head. That's actually quite realistic. It's portrayed comedically, but yeah, all the stuff that he's thinking about, they're all very important questions that he's going to have to work through. Like, what the hell does it mean to him to know now that she has felt this way about him? How do I feel about her? Depending on how I feel about her, what should I do? There's a lot to have to work through. I did actually look a little bit into the anime after you told me about what you had heard about it. And it does seem as though things were implied that Uruka was the girl. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
No, I mean, it's an anime only.
It's not. Well, even beyond that, like, if it were something like, and then they hooked up and they held hands while going away together, that would be one thing. It's not. Basically, like, Uruka goes away on her trip, and there is a shot that implies that she was the girl who helped him up during the fireworks ceremony. That's basically all that actually happened. I'm sure that we're going to get a lot of stuff focusing on Yuiga's relationships with different girls. And I wonder if this is going to be a thing where Uruka gets put on a bus so that we have the thing where she, yes, confessed to Yuiga, but that's something that's going to kind of be like, okay, now she's going to go away for a bit, and then we're going to deal with that later after the stuff with the other girls gets resolved and we settle on how they feel about each other then. I mean, it seems to me as though this is basically what the hooks remaining in the series are who's Yuiga going to end up with, and how are things with the other characters and his interpersonal relationships with them, how are they going to turn out? So they passed their tests, so that's what we're left with. So I guess this is what we're going to do for the last couple of months run of this series. So
yeah, no, I definitely dig it. Well, we'll see exactly where this goes. We're a part 1, so we know this is going to be a sequence of chapters.
Yep.
It'll be curious because they do put a very tight time frame on things. Like, we already knew We Never Learned was coming closer to the end than it ever was, but now it's even more so specifically when it comes to Aruka. They're like, she's leaving right after graduation, so
as soon as this arc is done, she's leaving, basically.
Yeah. So if maybe we still have, we can still process all that. I don't think it excludes her from necessarily being the one girl who ends up with him at the end, because,
right.
I mean, hell, if you even look at Nisekoi, they essentially did that relationship. Like, they didn't really see each other for a while, and then they saw each other later on, and now they're a couple or something like that. So you could definitely do that. But it is curious, like, this might be the final Aruka arc of the whole series. So it's interesting.
Take it from a guy who knows long-term relationships can be difficult, but just because someone's going away doesn't mean that you can't be with them. So, all right, Chris, it's time for Chainsaw Man. Careful, Chris. That's the sound that demons hear when they're revived onto Earth. So.
They hear me doing it?
Yes! Chapter 53, In a Dream. We get a shot of Denji as a young boy, teenager, preteen, younger than he currently is, standing at in front of a bizarre doorway that seems to have an eye looking through it. And there's a voice that comes from the other side of the door that says, "Don't open it." And then he wakes up. And Meowie is sleeping next to him, which Power gets upset about when they have breakfast because she's like, "Why did you went and slept with him even though I'm back now? How dare you, you traitor? Unfaithfulness is one of humanity's most foolish traits."
Like the cat, like you just see it like reaching out. Like it'd be great if it was just going for the eggs. It's like, give me them eggs.
Denji's still depressed about Reze. Everything kind of makes him think about her, and he's like, "My heart was stolen away by her. I may never feel joy or sadness again for the rest of my life." And then Makima shows up and is like, "Hey, so I'm gonna go and visit Enoshima. Do you guys want to come with me?" And Denji's like, "Yay!"
His face is the greatest thing where one eye is huge but looking out to the sky, the other one's squinted. Ah!
That's why I hate Denji.
I fucking love that face so and it makes sense. Like Denji's sort of like this hyper accentuated personality of a teenager, and of course after his first heartbreak he's like, "I'm never going to get over this. I'll never feel joy or sadness again for the rest of my life. I'm an empty shell." And then another girl he likes is like, "Want to go on a vacation?" He's like, "Yippee!"
Fucking idiot. I know it's like consistent and it's like good writing, but I just don't like him when he's like this. I love that, like, so Denji's of course like, "Yay, yes," and then Aki's like, yeah, sure, we'll go with you. And then Power looks at Makima and is like, "I have an urgent meeting that day," and Makima's gonna be like, "We haven't chosen a day that we're going yet." Power's just literally just like, no, can't make it. No, too busy at the office doing work things. Like, you work for me.
I know your schedule.
So Denji's immediately like, "Yay, we get to go on a trip together." And the door opens up and a bunch of guys in suits come storming in. There is whispering between them and Makima as everyone kind of wonders what's going on. And they're like, "Okay, we got a problem." Turn on the TV to see, oh, hey, look, it's Denji in Chainsaw Devil form during the fight in the streets. And people are wondering if, is this an ally? Is it an enemy? He's wearing the uniform of the public safety devil hunter, though. So what's going on there? So Makima says like that she's been imposing restrictions on the media to try and prevent stuff from getting out, but it didn't work this time. It was too public a fight. Both Power and Denji, of course, immediately miss the point because Power's like, "Denji's fighting on a train!" And Denji's like, "Being on TV is awesome!" And everyone's just like,
Sure.
Makima says that little bomb fulfilled her task. Basically, although they didn't successfully capture the Chainsaw Devil, now the whole world knows the Chainsaw Devil is in Japan, so other governments are going to want him. Those like Denji who aren't devils or fiends are incredibly valuable. And so Aki is like, well, but if, the bomb was a Soviet assassin, why would they deliberately increase their competition? And Makima says probably what's going on is they just don't want her to have the Chainsaw Devil under her command. Denji and Power are immediately like, "So we're going to Enoshima, right? What is that, an island?" And Power says a really weird thing. She says, "As a matter of fact, my summer home is on Enoshima." Like, she just like randomly bullshitting for no reason
I
because
thought that was a trait of hers. I might be mistaken. I thought she did just say random shit because she could. She just lies randomly.
just lies. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a cat. Yeah. Of course, Makima says the trip is postponed, which depresses Denji. She immediately starts taking action about stuff. She's issuing orders and everything. And then she's just like, the trip's postponed. And Makima's and Power's like, yeah, we don't have to go on a trip with Makima. Whoa! Makima warns Denji that there are going to be assassins coming from all over the world trying to kill him. And she says, consider yourself without freedom for the foreseeable future. Place him under house arrest, basically. She walks off. Aki also goes along with the other agents and her, and she says that she is putting him on the gun devil operation. So try not to die during all of this. We'll need everyone's strength to kill it. Aki has a flashback to a conversation he had with the angel devil, who basically explains to him some devil lore, which is devils don't die. I mean, if they die and they turn to ash, as long as people fear their true name, they'll come back to life in another form. But they don't revive into this world. They come back in hell. And then, I don't know if this is true or false, devils who die in hell apparently come to this world. They have an endless cycle of death and rebirth. Aki's like, so what, you don't remember? He's like, well, do you remember being born? Fuck you, But he says, listen, don't tell anyone what I'm about to tell you. But I've asked the other special division devils, and none of them remember hell. But they do remember the last sound they heard before dying in hell. The sound and the sound is the same thing for all of them. I started Chainsaw's engine during that battle, and the brum sound he made, it was the same sound as that. So, very big hint about why the Chainsaw Devil is so important and why people are after Denji.
There was a moment where he's just like, I wanted to be like, don't you remember your mother's room? And somehow it's like, but I do. I remember my mother's room because of my baby memories. Like, you don't belong.
Listen, look, my series is ending soon. I need a new place to hang out from now on. And you guys seem pretty cool.
Yeah, I like this. There's a bunch of boob touching talk, which, hey, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm definitely like moving in that direction. So, gotta get ahead of the curve. Like 11, something like that.
Weren't you like 15? It's like, no, pretty sure I'd remember if I was. I kind of my baby memories.
I can remember every calendar I've ever seen. Cool. It's something you can't say you did.
Touche. The last few pages, however, are introducing some new weird characters. A trio of brothers who have a new job. And they're like, oh, hey, apparently if we kill this chainsaw guy and bring him back to America, they'll pay us $2 million. So it's dangerous. We'd have to get him from public safety and police protection. But yeah. But one of them has got scars over his eyes, says, this seems dangerous. We could die. We should turn this down. But another one's like, die? We don't die. Can you imagine the moment of my death? What about this idiot? Can you imagine your own death? The gun devil leveled our entire house and we didn't die, even though mom, dad, and grandma all died. Even when we get swallowed by a devil, even when our place was on fire, even when all three of us got food poisoning, we didn't die. We are immortal. So, getting some new antagonists introduced, it looks like. Some new people that Denji and company are going to have to deal with. So, I will say I really, really like this chapter.
Okay.
A lot of ominous stuff, which is very different for Chainsaw Man, but between this and the stuff with Reze dying last chapter, it's going in a direction that I actually really quite like. Denji still sucks though.
So this was a weekend jump where it felt like we got kind of a lot of like big villain introductions throughout the magazine, and I think this is the only one where I wasn't really excited at all. These three characters who are referred to as Scruffy Beard, Scruffy Hair, and Scruffy Eye. they're just not like a ton of personality or unique design to them, and maybe we've just been spoiled by Denji having fights against
and
really
they're
cool
all
devils.
in Men in Black suits too. So
Like, I think that these characters could be interesting, but I'm not sold in on them yet. Like, if these are the guys who like we're kind of following up Reze with,
yeah,
I'm a little bit like, like feels like a step down. But who knows? We still haven't gotten a lot of them. We shall see. Or maybe they just get murdered immediately. Like it's Chainsaw Man. That shit could just happen. They could just be jokes essentially.
right.
So I'm excited for what they're setting up here, where it's like, hey, now the entire world knows about you. They all want to kill you specifically so I don't have you. Like I like this idea that everyone in the world, like every government agency, just fucking hates Makima. They don't want her to have something like this. So it's cool that we established that. We get
Well,
some
Makima's made enemies. How?
I know, she seems like such a cool dude. So I do like a lot of the small things. I'm just very like kind of lukewarm right now on this introduction of a new antagonist group.
All right, moving on from there. The Promised Neverland, chapter 163. Reversal. All right. So Sanju and Muchika, they revive one of the elders and they tell him what happened. And they're like, I'll help. And Sanju's like, okay, we'll revive the other four then. But then there's murmuring outside. A crowd has gathered as someone issues an announcement saying, Her Majesty the Queen has passed, killed by bandits who took advantage of the confusion in town. They even killed the lords and lady of the 5 regent houses, but do not worry. Henceforward, the 4 great farms and the vassal armies of the 5 regent houses will govern under an assembled court. I will hereby read the proclamation. And immediately Sanju and Muchika are like, this isn't good because this is way too fast a reaction to what's going on. The fact that they've already decided exactly how they're going to handle the chaos and what they're going to do in the vacuum of power. So he immediately thinks to like, I guess we're supposed to think that he realizes that Ratri is behind this because we get a flash of him as he's like, what's going on here? But I don't know. The Gillen clan is blamed for everything that happened, as well as Sanju and Mujiko, whom they've got a wanted poster for. And so immediately some people are like, wait a minute, those two, they helped us. And some people actually speak out on their behalf saying like, hey, they helped assist us when things were going wrong. And so they're like, we kindly ask for your cooperation. Those who saw the bandits or received their blood, please come this way. And just lock them all up. I don't know how none of them saw that they were heading right into a massive cell, but they end up in one. Why are you? Hey, this room doesn't have a back door. So they're like, yeah, we got to kill you all because you're contaminated by harmful blood, and there are kids separated from their parents and stuff, and so they're like, oh no, and they're like, well, everyone, kill the bandits. And so people immediately start rushing around trying to find Sanju and Mujika. And they're like, oh no, we're suddenly enemies of the kingdom. And Mujika's like, even though we saved all of them, because we saved them, now they'll be killed, just like last time. Now nothing will be different from the terrible world we had before. It was starting to change. We had the chance. And the one moment in this entire chapter that I actually really like is we see Ratri sitting at an Othello board, and he's like, with one move, has flipped over all of the pieces to be for his color. So it's like, okay, it's a good little symbol of like he's reversed everything in one fell swoop. That's it. Like they're like, we can't fight back against the civilians because we don't want to kill them, so they get captured. That's it. Things went bad, and now Sanju and Mujika are prisoners. Oh no!
So the first time I read this chapter, I really wasn't into it because I was like, you know what? Like, Ratri's kind of been around for a while, and this doesn't really feel all that, like, I just really wasn't into that character or anything like that. But I read this chapter a second time, and I realized that I had to put it into perspective. And just kind of as I mentioned with Chainsaw Man, I looked at this chapter as sort of the introduction to a new villain. Now, we've known about Ratchet for a very long time, but this felt like being truly introduced to him. Like, here is your new antagonist. Him and Mom or Grandma, or I guess just Isabel, if you want to call her, like, they are probably going to be our final antagonists of this manga. And I actually got a lot more excited because I was like, even though we don't know a ton about Peter Ratchery, this was a very cool move that he's kind of predicted this was going to happen and immediately had everything at the ready to take over, catch everyone off guard, and
stop the blood from being spread around in order to take away the power from the regent houses.
Yeah, and to have a new established government to kind of continue the status quo, but without having to, placate some crazy queen or anything like that. Like, they've immediately taken over and kind of restored everything. And you do get that, like, suffocating sense of, like, crushing defeat when you're like, you see the great elders revived. He's like, it's a chance for us to turn over, and then everything goes wrong. Everyone they saved are ultimately just going to get killed now because of their intervention. They're wanted criminals because fucking Mujika has been spending the last like 4 days giving her blood out to everybody. She's fucking like, she's low on blood and like lightheaded and just kind of falling. The other ally they have is a 1,000-year-old dude who just got revived. So it's just Sanju like, God, fuck, I have to do everything. And it's something where you're like, you know what? This is where I feel like Promised Neverland can be more interesting when the antagonist is someone who they're trying to outthink instead of outbeat. Like, I know Luvis was kind of a little bit of both and he worked, but when it was someone like Andrew, you're like, he's not like a smart guy. He just has a bunch of guns and a bunch of people. And the same thing was kind of with the Queen, where you're like, I mean, this is okay. She's really strong, and they had kind of find a way to beat her that didn't really feel super satisfying. Like, I'm more interested in like, okay, how is this guy who's super intelligent and kind of already managed to turn this around? How can the kids beat him? Because it doesn't look like they're gonna have the help of Sanju Musica anymore. Like, they're kind of out of this situation.
Don't worry, guys. We'll defeat him the way we defeated all the foes we've met in the past, with firearms.
It'd be great. He's like, we'll defeat them the same way we beat the Queen. Mujika, see into his soul. Like, Mujika was captured, right? What was I talking to? That's a tree stump. I don't really. I kind of
Look, I'm really bad with faces. I thought you remembered everything.
No. I remember everything from when I was a baby. And babies are stupid. They don't know what they're looking at.
You're like, if you like. They don't even like put your eyes over his. If you put your hands over his eyes, he's just like, "Where'd you all go?"
Oh God, existence is faded. Oh, it's all back. Oh no, it's gone again.
All right.
All right, let's talk about Black Clover, Nick. Page 235, Dark Disciples. So last time, a bunch of Spade Kingdom guys invaded the Golden Dawn headquarters, so Yuno is heading out now. Fucking Ralph or Chud or Jim, I don't remember what this character's name is. He's like, no, stop. They are the highest ranking members of the Dark Triad. If you go, you will die. And Yuno's like, I'm the vice captain of the Golden Dawn, and he just leaves. So it's Yuno throwing away his responsibilities, I guess, as prince, or it's just, I don't know. He cares about his friends. So we go over to the Golden Dawn headquarters.
He doesn't care about this. He said in the last chapter the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, no, I just mean, like, this is, I think, a way of him firmly kind of saying, like, fuck that. I don't care. I'm Golden Dawn, you know? So,
Golden Dawn for life.
Yeah, for life. He does Too Sweet. And you're like, look, every group can't do Too Sweet. It's not that cool of a hand gesture. In fact, you all look kind of dorky now when you do it because it's like some weird wrestling in-joke that's lost all fucking meaning. By the way, the NWO kind of sucked too, all right? You want to be cool? Do the shield hands.
Can you name all the members of the NWO, Chris? No, you can't. No one can.
I mean, are we counting every splinter group too? Does the BWO count? Do like cross-faction versions count?
Main NWO only, but celebrity cameos who were brought in also count.
That's like 7 people. I think David Arquette was a member for a little bit.
There was like at least one NASCAR driver.
That was RoboCop. Did he join the NWO when he showed up? Did Chucky
No, but
join
I'm
the
pretty sure
NWO?
Chucky did. Jay Leno, though, he was anti Hogan.
he was part of Sting's stable for real. Like Sting didn't have a stable. He was just an idiot until he joined the NWO too.
No, he was Wolf.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Was that the anti-NWO stable? Another stable called NWO?
There was NWO Black and White, and then there was NWO Wolfpack.
So I never really watched WCW during that time. I only kind of picked up
Good.
factoids here and there. And I remember looking at it and I was like, there was NWO Black and White, NWO Wolfpack, NWO like Mexican or something like that. I feel like there was another NWO faction too, like NWO like After Dark or some shit like that. It was just like there were like 5 different splinter versions of the NWO, and they all sucked after the first one because they just kept adding shitty people. Dark Order.
Is popular, so this is popular. We need more of it.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
the Golden Dawn are there.
There's a lot of wrestling references in this show.
It's ironic. We do it while the 2 biggest wrestling shows of the week are going on. The Golden Dawn are being attacked. So they're like, everybody attack at once! One! They all do a big giant attack. It doesn't really work. The 2 guys who aren't the special dude are just like, ha! That didn't do anything. And I guess they maybe put up a shield, or they're just so strong magic doesn't really hurt them, because there's nothing to really indicate why they weren't hurt by being attacked from all angles by a bunch of strong magic, but whatever, who cares? They have the devil's magic kind of fading off their shoulders a little bit. And the guy who has rock arms is like, you were supposed to be the toughest brigade, aren't you? Is that all you have? But I guess I shouldn't think too poorly of you. I mean, after all, you're not hand-picked elite soldiers who are the strongest ever, like we are. We're the Dark Disciples, and we're all stage 0. And that's... Yeah, he beats everybody up, basically. He talks about how the devil's powers in them, how they can unleash up to 40%, because the guy we saw that asked to beat up, he can only unleash about 5%. They could do 40, and Lord Zeno, he could do up to 80%. And then
fuck off.
And then Lord Zeno shows up and sees William Vengeance, and William Vengeance is in danger, but don't worry, Sandler shows up and is like, I will defend you, my master. And you're like, who gives a fuck? It's supposed to, like, he's like, even if I was just a vessel for the elf, I fight under you because that is what I want to do. And he summons a big armor and swings. But he just gets impaled by a bunch of bones instead. And I don't know entirely what happens because there's no scene of it. But I guess, what's his name? William Vengeance saves him by pulling him away with the tree magic, so he doesn't get super skewered. But I sat there and I was like, no, not Sandler.
He also seems to wrap a bunch of the roots of his world tree magic around the incoming bone protrusions, so he does block a bunch of them too. So.
Yeah. So he says, hey, no matter who you are, you're not going to hurt any of my brigade members and get away with it. And Lord Zeno's like, world tree magic, is it? For the benefit of the Spade Kingdom, I'll take it! And he uses his bone magic, Eternal Fangs, and we don't see what happens. We just see show up, and everyone's dead, or I guess really, really hurt. It's
really big boo-boos.
Yeah, it's Black Clover, so I guess everybody who's been knocked out efficiently, but they will recover.
Everyone needs to go to the Pokemon Center.
Yeah, exactly. And Rock Guy's still there. Old Rock Strongo is just like, you're late to the party, Nat. Who do you think you're looking down on? And says, what are you doing to my comrades? And he activates his special magic form, and that's the end of the chapter.
All of my friends in the Golden Dawn, is Asta in the Golden Dawn?
He shows up, he's like, Sandler is okay, isn't he?
It's like he's like in a Silent Voice where people who aren't Asta just have the X's over them.
He's like looking across his team. No. When he sees Mimosa, he sees 2 extra crosses over her boobs.
No!
He's like, they're large enough that my eyes recognize it as a potentially new person. Yeah, that's the chapter. There's not a ton to say here. We got a bunch of new bad guys. I guess bone magic's kind of cool. Again, it still falls into that realm of like, what traditional element is bone magic? But it's kind of cool, so whatever. I feel like it's going to be easier to just ignore that stupid statement was ever stated and just be like, no, every kingdom can have weird, crazy magic. It's not a non-factor.
All right. One Piece. Who
Big
are these?
chapter.
Who are these scary-faced men on this color page?
I actually had to ask about this. I asked in our Discord, which you can always check out, everybody. These are apparently the members of Arashi, which is like a Japanese boy band that did a song for one of the movies, I think. Did like an AMV, and there was like an AMV when they crossed over. So they had, I believe, their 20th year, kind of like the Backstreet Boys, I guess, of Japan in a certain way. Because they had their 20th year celebration the same time that One Piece did, I think. So I think it was like a crossover for that, to my understanding.
Okay, fair enough.
I had the same thing, though, too, where I was like, these are obviously real people. I have no idea who they are, and there is no
reason to draw someone so terrifying unless it's based on a real person. All right. One Piece chapter 967, Roger's Adventure. So Roger's crew gets back down from Skypiea. They Roger's only just now learned from Odin that they've seen, the poneglyphs, and they have some in Wano, and also on Zoa. And he's just like, why didn't you say anything about this before? I've been searching for so long for these things.
We didn't think it was a big deal.
So he's like, yeah, I've already gotten one rogue poneglyph that I stole from Big Mom. So I've got it in my grasp, and I've got to gather all 4 of them so that I can, find where this is leading me to. And there's a lot that happens in this chapter because they're going from place to place in order to get this stuff. So they stop in Water 7, and Tom's there, and
do it with a Dawn, Tom. Do it with a Dawn.
Roger's like, have you built that train of yours yet? And then really weird little moment, like Odin sees a young Frankie. He's like, hey, you're an orphan. I want me to put in a word with our captain, get you on board our ship. And Frankie's like, no, fuck you. I don't like pirates. So, yeah, okay.
Now I wonder if that might be the reminder, because it's always been kind of a thing. Frankie's family was abandoned by pirates, or Frankie was abandoned by pirates. They mentioned that at the end of like the big, like Frankie kind of joining the Straw Hats thing, and kind of did a reminder here. And it's always kind of been a theory. Like, I wonder who Frankie's family was, and or specifically, I guess, where he came from. What pirates abandoned him? So I wonder if this is a reminder that we might get like a payoff set up like later on down the line. I was thinking about the idea of doing like big predictions for each of the series this year. I didn't have time to like put it all together, but if I was to make a big prediction, I was going to say we're going to find out a monumentally large thing about a member of the Straw Hats this year. And part of me was like, maybe because we may not get something for Zoro, but maybe there's a chance we find out something about Frankie and his family. Maybe we won't. Maybe that's the part of me that's like, fucking J.J. Abrams. Frankie doesn't need a special family or something like that. But part of me is also wondering.
His last name is Skywalker now. Deal with it.
It's one of those things where you're
Here's
like.
the dramatic final shot of the movie featuring Rey and BB-8, who did nothing in this movie.
We don't need them to. It's just one of those things where I'm like, maybe this is irrelevant. But part of me saying maybe this was meant to be a reminder to some sort of payoff. Because we're running out of people for it to be. Essentially, and
maybe
this,
it's
yeah, I mean, maybe it's nothing. Maybe they were just no-name pirates or something like that. But for these reminders,
they
to
were
keep
nobodies.
yeah. Don't worry, Palpatine fucks though.
They go to Fishman Island in order to speak with Neptune, who at this time had only recently become the king. And so they're like, "Oh, well, listen, I don't know, you can't be here, Roger, because a prophecy we've just heard a prophecy that soon someone will destroy the gates of Fishman Island, and you tend to cause a lot of shit, so you being here, is probably a bad thing." And then immediately they're like, "King Neptune has been destroyed. A Neptunian just bit through the gates." So they're like, "That's outrageous." The Neptunians never do that kind of thing, but sure enough, it has happened. And so like, oh, there really was a disaster, and Roger's crew is just like, wasn't us, can't blame us for this stuff. And we actually meet Charlie, the prophet who was in the Fishman Island arc, and she's 3 years old at this point, and has her own little like crystal ball and stuff that she's seeing stuff through. And she's like, "Oh yes, the Neptunians are restless because they are waiting for the mermaid princess to be born." And they're like, "Oh, okay." When His Majesty has a child, he's like, "I'm not married, guys. I haven't fucked. Okay, so hold your horses." But they point out, like, well, Shirley has been very accurate in every prophecy that she's made so far. So, and hey, she was right about the seditious mermaid Otohime and her political protests. So, yeah, she was right about all this stuff. But we know that Shirley's been accurate anyway, so whatever. Yeah. So, but it's nice to have like, oh, hey, remember this? Yeah, Roger met them too.
I really, I made a tweet about this, but I really have to establish that it took me like, I read this chapter twice, and it wasn't until the second reading I was like, oh, right, Neptunians are what Sea Kings are now. I spent the entire chapter, I was like, who the fuck were the Neptunians? Was that not the royal family? Are they referring to themselves in the third person? Is he talking about fish people who aren't mermaid people? Like, it took me so long to fucking remember. It's like, oh, right, that's what they can fucking do.
The trials of switching over to official localizations.
Yeah, I was like, all right, they haven't fucking talked about Sea Kings in a really long time.
So they sit down for a meeting, and they get the poneglyph as well for here. They say like, it's an apology from someone named Joy Boy. So can you read this writing? What about the weapon that can control Neptunians? Is that here? And Odin's reading over them and stuff like that. Neptune is like, goes over a prophecy that Charlie delivered that said a mermaid who can talk to Neptunians would soon be born, but they only come around a few centuries. So yeah, they're like, so you're saying your daughter will be a weapon that will destroy the world. It's like, it's just a prophecy. Shut up. So Roger asks when the mermaid princess is going to be born. And this is like the one hint of Shirley being like a 3-year-old, because she's like, in 10. And she holds up her hands to indicate 10 years. I do kind of wish that when she was speaking, it was a little bit more like, yeah, she's a little kid. It would have been an opportunity to have like a little bit of goofiness of like everyone puts all their faith in this little girl who can't spell very well yet, Anyhow, so they set sail after that. I do like as they're going from place to place, we do also get a montage of them just on journeys and stuff, and there's bits of them like singing Bink Sake and stuff like that. Toki falls ill, and they're like, "Hey, we should get her to Wano, and have her disembark there." And so Dogstorm and Cat Viper are like, "Hey, Kimon and the others don't know about Lady Toki, so we'll stay here with her." And Owen's like, "Yeah, and I'll stay here too." And Toki's like, No. And look, you've got to go. If you are the type of man who stops now, then I'm getting a divorce." So they indeed stop in Wano, and it's really like Odin's got to be a dick. He can't be genuine with people, even the people who trust him the most in the world. So they're like, "Oh, thank goodness you're here, Lord Odin. You left Kuri in our hands, and all of Wano is..." And Toki's like, hey, listen, if you care for Odin, then I beg of you, you've got to let him. And before she can even say, it's like, I'm leaving. He just immediately turns his back and walks out. And basically, he was only in Wano for a few hours before he departed again. But it's just the type of man that he is, Chris. You just can't hold him down.
Well,
He can't be nice to people about stuff. He's got to act like he's a dick.
yeah, I mean, it's also a level of like, he probably isn't a great king. Like
No.
it's one of those things, but I understand why he's also, it's that thing of like that allure of like, you're part of destiny, or this weird thing. Like he's part of everything Roger's been doing. And he's like, I can't leave it behind now. We're literally at the doorstep of what might be the greatest discovery.
They've got to get
in
one
all
more
of human
poneglyph
history.
at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, in fairness, he's probably trying to spare himself because he's like, I can't tie myself emotionally to this place and the friends that I have here. I was able to get myself to leave, but it'll be harder and harder to leave if I, dwell here and leave my wife here too.
Yeah.
So he takes a copy of the poneglyph there, and then it goes back to the ship, and they get to Zoe, and Odin's like, I've got this strange feeling. And we meet the Duke of the Mokomo Dukedom, Genghis Khan. It's a great pun.
God, fuck, I hate One Piece sometimes.
A bunch of people mob Roger's crew with Garchus and stuff. And Odin again is just like, oh, it feels so weird to be here. And Roger is also like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, it feels weird to be here. Like something huge is watching us. They get to the final road poneglyph. Odin sees that there is the Kazoki crest above it and is like, that means that we, have this brotherhood with the minks. Little baby Pedro is there and he asks Roger to go along with him. And Roger says something kind of cool, which is like, hey, listen, kid, you're on the waiting list. Everyone gets their turn, their time to shine. When it comes around, you can help us. So, cool little way of saying, stay home, kid, and don't die. But we had found several real poneglyphs, the 4 road poneglyphs, and so they sent. At one point, they sent a port. Buggy wasn't doing very well, and so he caught a fever. He had to stay behind, and Shanks decided, hey, I'll stay here and get him back to health. He says, if we're going to go there, we'll take our own ship someday. So there you go.
It's a good way to explain why, if they were part of his crew the entire time, why they didn't get there. And it also does make sense. Shanks being this kind of almost like way wise beyond his years kid was kind of like, no, I've been part of this crew, but this seems like something big enough. I want to discover it on my own kind of thing. And I do like the idea. He's like, I'm going to stay behind with Buggy. They're friends, even if they aren't.
Yeah, that's basically it, isn't it? Roger's crew completes a full circumnavigation of the globe. He is declared the king of the sea, the king of the pirates. And on that day, we learned the entire truth of the world. What the 100-year void is, what the people of the D are, what the ancient weapons are. In the past, Wano was open to the world. And in the face of that vast treasure, which was very real indeed, Roger just laughed. We get this huge, more than a full-page spread of Roger throwing up back his head in laughter, a tear coming down his face because he's laughing so hard. And so did we all. We laughed until tears sprang to our eyes. And Roger says, oh, Joy Boy, I wish I'd been born in your time. This is quite a treasure you've left behind. A tale full of laughs. Say that gives me an idea. We're the first people to reach this final island in 800 years. Why don't we give it a name? We'll call it Laugh Tale. So, lore.
So this is a huge chapter. This is maybe one of the biggest chapters in all of One Piece. Because we specifically are getting some real confirmation about quote unquote One Piece and everything around with it. And we see how Roger's completed his journey. And we get a confirmation that there is an actual real physical treasure there, quote unquote. But it doesn't fucking matter. It's like, it feels like we're kind of setting up for the idea of like, it's not really the journey that's the true treasure along the way. It's just by the end of it, you'll realize how little that treasure actually meant to you along the way. There are a bunch of people who are really upset about this chapter because they thought Laugh Tale was a stupid cop-out. And I was like,
pun in One Piece. How could you?
But I sat there and I was like, this is the same thing as fucking Gol D, Roger. This is the same goddamn thing where I don't know why I didn't fucking see something like this coming. Where you're just like, yeah, of course, Raftel probably has a much stupider name that has just been mistranslated as years and years have gone by. And you're like, fuck, man, it makes sense. Like, it really does. So I can't be angry. I'm like, this is 100% Oda. And it's such a great, like, revelation after all of this. I really, like, the last page really cements an idea of what One Piece is about. And One Piece often has to deal with, like, kind of mortality and dreams and making the most out of life. And it feels so fitting that in this big moment where Rogers finds the big treasure, we know he's dying. He's been sick for a while. He's had these issues, that all this would go on. He finally discovers the big treasure and he's with all of his friends and they're all partying and they're like, it doesn't fucking matter. And you know what? We're the ones who discovered the sound. Why don't we kind of name it as a joke? You know, like it's the Laugh Tale. And it's just like, it's so fitting for them. Like, I love it. I understand why people can maybe be annoyed by it. But this to me was kind of like an inspiring moment because I was like, this is a firm reminder that Oda still has it, that 20 plus years of doing this manga and he still has that ability to pay off something he's set up fucking like a decade ago. And it was really satisfying.
I didn't quite like this chapter. It's weird because it's kind of it is both literally and, you know, in literary terms all over the place. Because they go here and they go there and they go there and all this stuff. And we go between, you know, moments that don't really have the time to be emotional. And then there's a lot more stuff placed on like just doing, hey, remember this character? Here's what they were like, you know, 25 years ago kind of stuff. There's a lot of, you know, just gratuitous cameos basically going on in this flashback. I didn't like this chapter as much as I've liked some of the other Odin flashback stuff. But in terms of how this fits into the all of One Piece, this is definitely something you got to pay attention to. So
yeah,
it is necessary reading for One Piece fans, basically.
And I would presume next chapter we probably are going to start at least getting to, if not, it is the chapter where we're kind of going to end this and we'll see how Odin dies. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're about ready to jump back into things. We got our big reveal out of all of this.
Yeah. I do get the impression that things might actually end rather suddenly too, because if they're based off of his journals, this flashback then might not necessarily follow a much more sensitive structure.
He's not going to be like that girl in fucking Attack on Titan who's writing as she's being eaten, like, oh god, I'm being murdered by Orochi, help me, please, no.
the last thing that's sticking out of the mouth is just her hand writing the shit. All right, World Trigger. Chapter 190, Yuba Squad, Part 3. We get an awesome 2-page color spread at the start of this with just a bunch of agents facing off against each other. Looking cool. It's the Rank Wars battle going on still. Things went bad last time for Tamakoma 2 because, you know, Yuz is down. That's not good. Izumi shows up, talks with Kyosuke in the crowd. He's like, hey, so what's going on? It's getting interesting, huh? And he says, how do you feel about your apprentices, you know, given that, you know, Hughes has been taken out? And Kyosuke said, it's Karasuma, right? That's his other name. I think. Scruffy Hottie.
Yeah, Karasuma.
He says, well, they did come up with a bunch of different strategies, so they'll probably be okay. But if I had to say, the one I'm worried about is. So it doesn't go on anywhere from there. I guess the implication is that he's worried about Chica, but who knows? It could be any of them or any of their opponents that are still left to deal with. Speaking of which, Ikoma Squad's in really bad shape in this chapter. Like, they start off in bad shape because they've already lost 2 of their agents. Things don't get better for them, really. Yuba Squad is going after Minami-sawa, who was involved in the big skirmish surrounding Hughes. He gets his arm blown off by a combination attack by Obishima and Yuba, and then he starts to fucking run. So their captain's like, "What? I'm kind of torn on what we're gonna do here, because if we let him get away, that's all of if we let Inukai rather get away, Ninomiya Squad's going to reunite unscathed. So we can't. How do we get after both of these agents that are running in different directions?" And Obishima takes charge. She says, "Hey, Minami-sa was mine. You go chase after Inukai." And so that's what they start to do. They split up, gang. They also have to deal with the fact that Yuba Squad and Tanoka both have Tamakoma marked. So one of the commentators says that Tamakoma's decision about which enemy to engage with could really affect the flow of the match. Inukai and Yuba starts to have a firefight, but it doesn't really get protracted very long before we cut away. Inukai is fighting as he flees. Chica takes up a position on a roof, and Osamu starts to instruct her and says, "Hey, listen, we're in danger with Tanoka triggering our bombs, so don't use Meteor. Instead, your Hound will knock our opponents off guard so the Kook and I can finish them off." And she's like, "All right, got it." And Osamu hops off of the roof, and Tanoka's like, "All right, perfect opportunity. She's all alone now. Hey, Tamakoma is heading your way, Obishima." He's like, "All right, so you're not going to deploy your meteor, so it's not going to blow up around you if I shoot it. So this time I'm going to snipe you myself." And so he fires a shot at her, and a shield appears right behind Chica, where he shot. And he realizes too late, as now his position has been revealed, that they deliberately drew him out, and she exposed one side of herself so that she could just shield that half of her body so that she wouldn't be hit when he attacked her. And now his position's been given away. She throws her fuck ton of bullets at him, blows up the building that he's on as he jumps off of it, and then he gets sniped by Agent Oki of Ikoma Squad. So that's a point for Ikoma there. There's a small little moment where they ask if Chica got him, and Osamu reports that Ikoma Squad got the point, and Chica is briefly relieved, and she's like, "Oh, like that's bad. I can't think that way. Next time I'll actually hit." So she's trying. The commentators note that probably what happened was that Oki probably had been pursuing Tanoka since the time that he blew up Chica's meteor, and has just been keeping an eye on him ever since then, because he's very sneaky and they don't want to have to deal with that. Meanwhile, Inukai is still not Inukai, rather. Mibishima is still running from Obishima. So Oki tries to coordinate them so that they can meet up and he can back him up. But some bullets come flying after him, and he's like, "Okay, all right, just dodge away from that." And the bullets come flying back towards him. He's like, "Oh shit, it's Ninomiya, and he's got mixed bullets, and he's after me. God, die, and he dives down between some alleyways, and he cloaks up with his bagworm. And he's like, "All right, I just got," and he gets cut in half. Because Tsuji of Ninomiya Squad was expecting him to dodge in this direction. So basically what happens in this chapter is Ninomiya Squad is kind of just looming on the horizon as this is getting built up, because none of their agents have been taken out. They're slowly coming together and gradually taking people out.
So all of Ikoma Squad's gone now.
Gone.
By the end of this chapter, all of them are gone.
So
Yuba squad's lost somebody,
yeah,
and Hyusei is gone. So
yep. Ninomiya's at full strength, and they've still got to deal with the Yuba who took out Yuma one-on-one, and they don't have their guy that they based their anti-Ninomiya strategy around, or at least their main one.
yeah, and it's a big deal that Suji was there because they say whenever or Ninomiya goes to use his combination, he always has someone there to guard him, and neither of the two agents are there. So he just, in full confidence, was like, "No one's gonna bother me while I'm doing this," and that's how he gets a big point off of it.
There is one last cool moment that happens because Yuma meets up with Obishima and Minamiya, Mibishima, whatever. Kai, the last guy on Ikoma Squad. And so they have a quick moment of like, okay, everyone's facing off against each other. And Kai's like, well, if he's here, then Mikumo's probably hiding nearby. And Obishima's like, in that case, it'd be 2-on-1-on-1. So they're like, maybe this is a temporary alliance. And Obishima immediately just shakes the balance. Like, nope, that's my point.
And it's a big deal. Like, the reason why it's kind of so threatening that Ninomiya Squad has all their members together is because we're kind of established Tamakoma needs 3 points. And as it is right now, there's only 5 points left on the board for elimination. And 2 of them are like super strong captains. They have 1, but they need 3 more.
Yeah.
So it's like
they could survive maybe, but that's probably not going to happen, especially if it's down to this few people. It's not like they can just all run away. So it definitely does seem as though things are coming down to Chika playing a pivotal role in this match. How much she can do is going to affect whether they win or lose or get enough points.
Now there's something that's been on the back of my mind. Because, they lost Hyusei, and that was supposed to be their big trump card against Ninomiya. There was a moment where Osamu asked about who he thought would win between Ninomiya and Yuba, and they created a scenario where they were like, Yuba could win. Like, if it's out of nowhere, really sudden, Yuba would win that fight. And I'm wondering because it feels like you may be setting up the idea of, like, Tamakoma needs to kill Ninomiya to win, because there's only so many points left out there for anyone to get. So it's very likely that they might have to kill Ninomiya to get some of those points, especially if they're going to win. They're going to need to do that. So I'll be interested to see if that plays into it, if it's a situation where you like maybe Osamu, since he's the strategist of that group, is like, we need to set up that scenario where Yuba can win so he can get that point and we could try to get something like that.
There could be all sorts of different ways they could approach it. Maybe one thing that they'll do, or the thing that'll end up happening, is that they get Yuba and Ninomiya Squad to like take each other out, and then there's no one left to take them out, so they just get the points off of survival because everyone else has killed each other. There's a number of different ways that you could go about it still, and I'm looking forward to how this is going to unfold, because they're in a really bad situation right now, not in terms of like, because, Yuma and Chika and Osamu, none of them have taken injuries or anything like that. They're all fresh, but they're in a situation where it's like, oh, these really powerful guys are slowly coming down to the last people left. So what do we do? So, all right. That is going to do it for our weekly manga recap. What were our favorites this week?
So my favorite chapter was One Piece. Just outright, it was the one I looked forward to the most this week and really enjoyed reading, like, again, and kind of grabbing a lore from it. MVP's tougher for me. I might need to think about that one.
By kind of the same virtue, I'm going to go with My Hero Academia. It's definitely just down to like personal preference, I fully admit. I just liked seeing everyone. I liked seeing everyone, the little interactions between the classmates, the stuff that All Might says, having All Might meet up with Deku and Bakugo, seeing stuff going on with the Aries storyline. I just liked seeing like, oh, it's all the characters that I actually care about, that are the good guys. Stuff is happening with them. So it's nice to see that happening again, as opposed to, well, I do relate a little bit more to the villains now. So.
I'm going to give Now from Mission Yozakura Family, my character. Like, I really liked him, and it was nice to see him. Like, yeah, like of all the characters from Mission Yozakura this week, you gave it to the Buckethead guy. Like, fuck yeah, I did.
Yes,
I absolutely did.
Oh, this is actually pretty tough for me too. You know what? I'm gonna give mine to Kaname from Zipman because I did like seeing like, hey, he's got this way of doing things where, yes, there's a smart approach and then there's a heartfelt approach, and he managed to find a way to overcome his social stigma to actually reach someone. So.
And for the audience, the chapter of the week was World Trigger, because it always is with our audience.
Yeah, it's understandable.
And the character of the week was Sarashi from Act Age, which leads us into a good reminder for next week. Next week, there are no jump series, so we'll still be doing a regular episode, but it's going to be us catching up on Act Age, and then we'll discuss some extra stuff that comes out, like the Crunchyroll series, or as you mentioned, Spy Family is going to have a chapter. So we'll be talking about that stuff, but we're going to catch up on Act Age next week, guys.
That's right. And honestly, the way that Act Age is kind of paced, we'll probably have quite a bit of stuff to talk about. So look forward to that. That'll be for next week. In the meantime, thank you everyone for joining us for Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show here on twitch.tv/RoloT Wednesdays around 7:30 to 8 Eastern Time. If you want updates and want to know exactly when we're going to start the show, you can follow us on Twitter. @DipMR Podcast is the official podcast account. Your hosts are @RoloT and @NickFTime. You can also check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. Leave a comment, rating, all that good stuff so that you can help us out with the algorithm. We can rise to the top of the hobby section and overthrow the woodworkers. Send us feedback, ask us questions for Q&A episodes, suggest future manga for us to read. You can do that via the Discord channel, emailing us weeklymangarecap@yahoo.com. And also be sure to use the Discord to check out the spreadsheet that Ninja X3i maintains that has all of the suggestions that we have worked on in the past, the weekly MVPs and favorite series and all that stuff. Big statistical board and everything, and you can follow along to when we get to the supplemental awards next year. It was very helpful for us having that to just reference this time last week. Thank you guys for supporting us on Patreon, and thank you to Steve Mann, our tarot card artist, to Infamous Planet, to Winslow Cheddar, to Milo Jack Stillitz, who made an awesome opening sequence for us. Infamous Planet did the thing around us on the stream broadcast, and Steve Mann draws boobs, and that's pretty cool.
And that's pretty dope. All right, is that going to do it? Are we heading off into the sunset, Nick?
Well, the sun's been set for a little while now, but yes.
I know. I hate winter. I hate everything about this.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. I hate this fucking state.